Hey, joining me in the studio now is Wade Hart from the Eildon Croquet Club. Good morning, Wade. How are you?
Good morning, Georgia. I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. Wade, it's all about croquet this morning. What is it?
Well, it's a game where you get to wander around on the lawn in the nice sun, hitting colourful balls around a lovely manicured lawn.
Right, okay. And a game for everyone or just a few of our senior cits?
Well, it definitely is a game for older people, but it's also a game for everybody. So because it's not particularly physically stressing, anyone from a 12-year-old through to we have a 96-year-old at our club.
Okay.
So anyone can play, and you have to be careful because it's the old wily players with their experience that are the ones that often get you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, with the skill and expertise. I've been past it. Lovely location. And why is it actually called the Eildon Croquet Club? How did all that come about?
Yeah, well, you go to competitions, and especially if it's sort of a bit away, and people say, well, where's Eildon? And you say, oh, Woody Point at Redcliffe. But from what I can gather reading the club history, initially the game was played at a large sort of stately home down near Sutton's Beach.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And Eildon is a place in Scotland that is sort of in the rolling hills, and it actually looks quite cold with the marshes and the hills and things. So I would think that the original owners of the house had called it Eildon because they were from Scotland. And so then when the club transferred from being at the private house to where the club's now is in the sort of early 60s, they kept the name of the original house where the croquet club was founded and called it Eildon Croquet Club. So our club shirts have the tartan from that particular area of Scotland on them and things. So yeah, it's a little bit of Scotland in sunny Redcliffe.
Yeah, in sunny Redcliffe. And you're obviously a member. How do you find it? How have you found it? How long have you been a member?
Well, I've played croquet for about 4 or 5 years and been a member of Eildon for 2, coming on 3 years. No, it's great. You meet interesting people. So, like we were saying before, lots of retirees play it, but it's not an exclusively retiree game. But all the people have done interesting things throughout their life. So you talk to people and you say, oh, what did you do? And people have been computer coders in the 70s and nurses and professors of this and all sorts of things, which isn't surprising because it's sort of a thinking game. It appeals to those people who like to figure out problems. So if you like things like crossword puzzles or Sudoku or chess or bridge or 500, any of those sort of strategic games, people tend to like the strategy involved in croquet as well. Okay,
really interesting stuff. It sounds like a lot of fun. Wade, when we come back, we're just going to talk, for the benefit of our listeners, a little bit about when it was once an Olympic sport and a bit more history about how women have been involved with the game of croquet. So stay with us. We're talking with Wade Hart from the Eildon Croquet Club. You're on 99.7 Bridge FM. Ben. Welcome back, Wade. How are you going?
I'm still good.
Yeah, still good. Hey, we're chatting with Wade Hart from the Eildon Croquet Club and just a little about the history of croquet, the game. And for the benefit of our listeners, the Eildon Croquet Club is located in the beautiful location at Woody Point. Wade, croquet once featured on the Olympic agenda.
Yes, it was a long time ago now, the Paris Olympics in 1900, which was a bit ramshackled. Like, I love reading about the original Olympics, like the early Olympics, because you can read about the marathons and all sorts of crazy stuff happened. Like, they'd be halfway through running a marathon and jump in a car and runners would be turning up without shoes and would have to borrow shoes from the crowd and all sorts of crazy things. And one of them was croquet was actually played in the Olympics.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was only ever played once, but it has a big claim to fame that the first Olympic sport to feature a female athlete was croquet in in Paris in 1900. So
there you go. So
yeah.
122 years ago. And we mentioned women in playing croquet. They were actually quite prominent in the game.
Yes, well, you can go around the clubs in Brisbane and like sort of all the different sporting clubs that have their rolls of honour. And one of my favourite ones is to find the first male that was a president of the different croquet clubs. And some of them, like Eildon McElwraith in it, Auchenflower, have never in their 100+ years of history had a male president.
Oh, there you go.
Been female the whole way through. And so most of them might have only had one or two male presidents in their history, and that they didn't come until this century. So how lots of the croquet clubs came about was the men would play bowls and the ladies would play croquet. So lots of croquet clubs are situated next door or very close to the bowls clubs because the ladies would play croquet and the men would play bowls.
And the gentlemen would play bowls.
Yeah.
You've actually played for Queensland against other states earlier this year. Croquet can be pretty competitive. You got to have a bit of a killer instinct there.
Yes, that's very much the case. You can get out of it whatever you'd like to get out of it. So if you want to play the game for some social interaction and some pleasantries in the morning out on the courts, you can play it to that, or you can play it all the way through to international level where it's very cutthroat. So yeah, I got to go to Sydney earlier this year to play in the interstate competition, and that was sort of very highfalutin. We got there and the Governor of New South Wales welcomed us with all the pageantry at Government House, and so it's a benefit of being sort of a classical Victorian sport is that you sort of get a bit of pomp and pageantry about it sometimes as well.
And even the odd high tea, maybe?
Oh, definitely. There's nothing... before COVID, it was commonplace that you would go out in the morning and play and get through sort of half a game, and then the providore would come out and ring the bell and everyone would stop playing, come in and have some tea and cake and a conversation, and then you'd go out and finish the second half of your game. So hopefully we can get back to that now that COVID's starting to wane a bit.
So it's all very civilised, isn't it?
Well, there's a saying that croquet is a nasty game played by nice people.
Oh, is that right? Well, when we come back, if we've got your interest here, we're going to talk a little bit more about how you could join and what type of people just might enjoy. We're chatting with Wade Hart from the Eildon Bowls Club. So stay with us on 99.7 Bridge FM.
Thank you.
We're talking with Wade Hart from the Eildon Croquet Club. We just run through a bit of history and all about the finer points and a bit of humour about the game of croquet. Down to what kind of person, Wade, do you think might enjoy croquet?
People who enjoy being in the sun and thinking. So if you'd ever played things like hockey, cricket, golf, any sort of hitting of a ball, tennis is another one, and then it's of course squash, or if you like puzzles and games and tactical sort of thinking games, then you'd enjoy croquet because, as I mentioned before, it's not a particularly strenuous game physically, but it certainly is strenuous mentally because you have to be thinking 3 and 4 shots ahead. So anyone who would like to get out in the sun and do a bit of thinking while out in the sun would enjoy the game, I think. And
also the social aspect of it.
Yes, it's a wonderful group of people. Everybody's really happy to be out and about. So if you're community minded or if you're thinking, I'd love to get out of the house and just be with other people, then it's a perfect club to come and join because we have lots of different social events where outside or including the game we get together and raise money for charities or have barbecues and all those kind of things. And we even had a craft fair recently where members of the club brought their lovely arts and crafts down and displayed it. So just things like that to enjoy each other's company outside of actually playing the game.
And, of course, the nice fresh sea air in your location too
Yes.
at Woody Point, yeah.
Yes, some afternoons it can get a little bit windy down there, but you couldn't wish for a better location, really. Like, especially in summer when that sea breeze comes in off the bay, it's a wonderful place to be out playing croquet, wandering around the lawns.
And, of course, no problem with parking either.
No, well, fortunately, not too long ago, the council did up all that car park there because we share the car park in that corner with the hall there. So it's quite an active little corner because the hall has sort of Pilates and yoga and various different meetings, and there's always croquet being played. So it's a nice little active area of the community there.
And if someone wants to get along and maybe just have a bit of a go at the game croquet, how do they do this? Discover more? Any costs involved?
Yeah, well, probably the best time to come down and say hello would be a Tuesday or a Friday morning. But really, if you're passing by Woody Point and you see someone playing on the court, feel free to pop in because they'll be able to give you at least a rudimentary introduction to the club. So more than welcoming, and just turn up and say, I'm interested in playing. And the cost is actually, for sport, quite reasonable. So over the course of a year, it works out at about $10 a week. And most of our members play at least twice a week, if not more, for about 2 or 3 hours a time. So it ends up costing sort of $5 a session, and you're there for a couple of hours. So there's not too much other entertainment or sport you can play for such a modest cost.
For such a modest cost,
and
yeah.
plus you get cake.
Yeah, and of course the cake, yes. Gosh, how could I forget the cake? Also, that lovely deck area that you have. I mean, it's nice to be sitting out there and having a cup of tea and just looking over the green, and then just glance across to the left, and there's the Woody Point Bay there. You know, really, really, really lovely.
Yeah,
lovely area.
We have quite a few parties and corporates that hire the club as well, often on sort of a Sunday afternoon or something, to have a party, and then sometimes they'll even then wander off down to the Belvedere Hotel to carry on their party when the sun sets. So.
When the sun sets, yeah, that's a must, isn't it? One of our valuable sponsors, the Belvedere Hotel. Wade, thank you very much for your time this morning. I must say my knowledge of croquet has improved exponentially in the last 45 minutes, so thank you very much and really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And we will be chatting with Wade again in a 3 or 4 weeks' time. So thank you, Wade. That's Wade Hart from the Eildon Croquet Club. You're on 99.7 Bridge FM.